gay or lesbian person, you shouldn't look at the Supreme Court and see your opponent. You should see a referee. You should see somebody who's going to call it fair. They went out of their way to grab this case and use it in the way that they've used it. And now the First Amendment is being used as a shield for bigotry. The First Amendment is being used as a shield for discrimination. There were people in my father's day, in my mother's day, who said that the Bible separated the races, that after Noah we were separated, after the Tower of Babel we were separated, that it was ordained by God that blacks and whites should be separated. Do their religious beliefs now come back? Can somebody now say, as a matter of religious faith, I just can no longer serve the agenda of diversity? This is all nuts. But it's not just a tragedy. It's a result of a strategy. And we got to wake up and realize this is a serious political fight, not just...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm hoping you're having a wonderful day. Now, I think that we're all coming to the conclusion here after watching that horrendous speech of that, pretty much saying that a violation of the First Amendment, or etc., or rather, this is an overreach. I think these guys are more authoritarian and really explaining this, showing themselves that they are authoritarian. I'm going to going over a few things as well on exactly what's been going on and exactly to explain what authoritarianism is and why the government cannot just, impede on the First Amendment, and why what Joe Biden is doing is exactly, impeding on the First Amendment. Now, we all seen so far that Joe Biden and this administration in itself has actively come into talking to social media companies, had the FBI try to police freedom of speech or the speech of others and get people in trouble for it. This has been proven, and we've shown it here on this YouTube channel. Now, due to this, the judge makes this ruling to prevent this from happening. Because this is what is supposed to be happening. And so we have this here. Judge rules Biden administration likely trampled on free speech on social media. A federal judge ruled that the Biden administration likely trampled on the First Amendment in trying to eliminate what it saw as disinformation on social media, issuing a broad preliminary injunction limiting to the federal government from policing online content. In a 155-page ruling issued Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Terry Doughty of Louisiana barred White House officials and multiple federal agencies from contacting social media companies with the purpose of suppressing political views and other speech normally protected from government censorship. Yeah, exactly. The injunction came in a lawsuit led by the Republican attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana, who alleged that the Biden administration fostered a sprawling federal censorship enterprise. The federal government, the lawsuit claimed, pressuring social media platforms to scrub away just favorite views about COVID-19 health policies, the origins of the pandemic, the Hunter Biden laptop story, election security, and other sensitive topics. The case is among the most potentially constitutional First Amendment battles pending in the courts, testing the limits on government scrutiny of social media content on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other major platforms. The evidence produced thus far depicts on English. The evidence produced thus far depicts an almost dystopian scenario, wrote Judge Doughty during the COVID-19 pandemic. A period perhaps been characterized by widespread doubt and uncertainty. The United States government seems to have assumed a role similar to Orwellian Ministry of Truth. The judge said the plaintiffs have presented substantial evidence in support of either claims that they were the victims of a far-reaching and widespread censorship campaign. A spokesman for the Justice Department declined to comment. Missouri versus Biden, as the case is called, is among dozens of so-called censorship by proxy lawsuits challenging account suspensions, content removed, and other suppression of social media posts on First Amendment grounds. Yes. So that is what's going on here, and I 100% agree. This is, again, this is not a really surprise. I mean, we literally saw the Ministry of Truth, really, as they said, they were going to form this, which will be showing you after this video clip, that this was something that they were going to do. They literally were trying to form this and be able to censor people's freedom of speech. I don't know what to tell you, but it's a huge violation of the First Amendment, like a massive violation of the First Amendment. So I don't know where these CNN people are getting to where this is, not a problem. And here's an even more bigger clip of the CNN people, and especially this insanity authoritarian far-left madman saying that, oh, well, this is an overreach of the district government, and, trying to check and make sure that, that it's a bad thing that the judge is preventing our government trying to censor our speech. This is not okay. This is bad. Take a look.
This judge was confirmed 98-0 by the Senate. Just reading the words in this injunction, a, quote, massive effort by the defendants to suppress speech based on content, those are the judge's words, calling the present case, quote, arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in the United States history, Ellie.
Yeah. It's a dramatic decision by this judge. If you read through it, he's citing to literature and George Washington and Ben Franklin. Here's what really is astonishing to me. This is a conservative ideology that clearly comes through in this decision. It's a conservative political ideology, right? We saw some of the quotes questioning vaccines, questioning masks, conservative talking points. But the ruling itself is the opposite of judicial conservatism. This is one of the most aggressive, far-reaching rulings you'll ever see. What this judge is purporting to do is to micromanage, really, the day-to-day interactions between essentially the entire executive branch, all these agencies that are listed as defendants, and the leading social media companies. And in the actual temporary injunction, the judge basically says, you're not allowed, administration, to talk to these social media companies about any protected free speech except for cybersecurity threats, national security threats, criminal threats. But where's the line? Who's going to police this? This is a judge trying to micromanage the day-to-day regular activities of the entire executive branch. I don't know that it's actually policeable by the judge, but it's really an astonishing. I don't mean this necessarily as a criticism. This is a very activist judicial opinion.
All right, you fool. Let's go over a few things here, because I think some things need to be bloody explained. If it's being a conservative, which, by the way, I don't really try to label myself as any of these political, things at all, by the way. I just try to label myself as a person just trying to live life and avoid this type of stuff altogether. But unfortunately, you people have pushed me to the edge to where I have to talk about this and to where it's an issue at hand. Now, let me tell you something about this being a conservative thing where, a talking point to where, yes, let's allow freedom of speech. Yes, so let's allow this. So, I don't think anybody is going to be too against this. And I think I could probably do a poll here in my Discord. In one of my friends' Discord, just gotta say, do you want to be able to say whatever you want to be able to say? And I'm pretty sure 99.9% of them are going to say yes. And the thing is that this is true. I don't think why anybody would want to have their speech censored. Now, let's go over here. Obviously. But we have First Amendment and censorship. So we're going to read the thing that's labeled here that says, by virtue of the 14th Amendment, the First Amendment constitutional right of free speech and intellectual freedom also applies to state and local governments. Government agencies and government officials are forbidden from regulating or restricting speech or other expression based on its content or viewpoint. Criticism of the government, political dissatisfaction, and advocacy of unpopular ideas that people may find distasteful or against public policy are nearly always protected by the First Amendment. Only that expression that is shown to belong to a few narrow categories of speech is not protected by the First Amendment. The categories of unprotected speech include obscenity, child pornography, defamatory speech, false advertising, true threats, and fighting words. Deciding what is and not protected speech is reserved to courts of law. The First Amendment only prevents government restrictions on speech. It does not prevent restrictions on speech imposed by private individuals or businesses. Facebook and other social media can regulate or restrict speech hosted on their platforms because they are private entities. So, that is one thing. However, we have the government just trying to actively do this, like where Biden is trying to do this type of stuff. So, again, Mr. CNN idiot I think you are not understanding what the ability, what the First Amendment is, and why the government talking to these social media companies to actually limit the freedom of speech is insanity. Because the thing is, the government can't actively go out and say, okay, we have to limit this, okay, because it's a violation of the 14th Amendment, obviously. But what they can do is go to other meat companies that makes them tell them to do this stuff, and then that puts the government into a violation of the First Amendment regardless. So I don't see to where this is going to be a benefit to anyone. This is where you go over here. Then we have authoritarianism, right? Where we have this, that the political scientists use the term authoritarianism to describe a way of governing that values order and control over personal freedom. A government run by authoritarianism is usually headed by a dictator. I remember back in 2020 when I said this guy was going to be a dictator, or is a dictator, and I guess I am true on this fact because, they try to create the Ministry of Truth. In context of democratic backsliding, scholars tend to identify authoritarian political leaders based on certain tactics, such as politicizing independent institutions, spreading disinformation, agonizing executive power, quashing dissent, targeting vulnerable communities, stoking violence, corrupting, etc., 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 right? This is what authoritarianism is. Last time I checked, that's exactly what the Biden administration is doing. They're doing this to have authority over other people, to limit the power of freedom of speech. This is what authoritarianism is, and I think you are very much informed. Now, what we have here as well, which I did say we were going to do, the Ministry of Truth, which was by the Biden administration, was by the Biden administration, was the type of thing that, they were trying to do earlier sometime by this. So we have this here, is that the Biden administration's Department of Homeland Security announced this week that it has launched what is dubbed a Disinformation Governance Board to combat misinformation. And we have this, the Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Truth is a Ministry of Propaganda. As with the other administration novel, in the name of Ministry of Truth is misnomer because the reality it serves the opposite. It is responsible for necessary falsifying of historical events. So, yeah, we have this, obviously, that Disinformation Governance Board paused after just 3 weeks. And we have this here that, from the Washington Post. And they have Biden's Ministry of Truth, which, again, comes down into conflicting of here to what we have this. So, again, let's go to this again. To the enforcement or advocacy of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom, which is authoritarianism. And then we have this. And then we have this where again, by virtue of the 14th Amendment, the First Amendment consulting right of free speech and editorial freedom also applies to state and local governments. Government agencies and government officials are forbidden from regulating or restricting speech or expression based on its content or view. And we also have this as well, that, for everything advocacy of unpopular ideas that may be find distasteful or against public policy are always protected by the First Amendment. Only the expressions that is shown to be from to few narrow categories of speech is not protected by the First Amendment. Yes, and all this stuff, right? So they're trying to use the Ministry of Truth to use the House misinformation, and this is what it is. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure I'm against authoritarianism in every type of way possible. And I really like my freedom of speech, so I like to keep it. CNN, what you're doing here is actively showing on how much you authoritarian you are, and how much you like to limit people's freedom of speech, and how much you would think it's horrendously bad for the government to stop, to not allow to talk to social media companies so they can limit your freedom of speech. You guys are authoritarian. You guys are evil. You guys hate others. You want to have full authority over other people and limit everything that they can have. That is why you are dying. That is why your news organization is a evil industry, and I think that we here, true colors have just been shown. Even though that's been shown many times, I think your authoritarianism has been shown to broad daylight. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share, and as always, take care.